Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Today, I am going to share a first look and unboxing of The Last 100 Yards Volume 4, The Russian Front, from GMT Games. This game series is designed by Mike Denson. The game is for 1 or 2 players, ages 14 and up, plays in around 2 hours per scenario, and does carry an MSRP of $65. It is available now. So let's swing on over to the other camera so we can get a closer look at the Russian front for The Last 100 Yards. A few things to mention before I dive on in. First of all, my friends over at GMT Games were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this coverage with you. These days, it's very, very important that you know that. All right, let's get the shrink wrap off here. And we will take a look at the back of the box. The Last 100 Yards introduces innovative systems intended to model small unit behavior in combat during World War II. The game is purposely designed to deliver a brisk yet intensive gaming experience that forces many decisions upon you as you take command of an infantry company on the Eastern Front. The Last 100 Yards Volume 4, The Russian Front, is the 4th game in the Last 100 Yards series. It covers major campaigns and missions from the second half of the war in the East, introducing the Russian army to the series for the first time. A series of missions simulates actions from the October 1943 fighting in the Ukraine near Kryvyi Rog, while others feature fights during the Russian 1944 summer offensive, Operation Bagration. All major Russian armor from late 1942 onward are covered, plus some additional late war German armored vehicles. Then there's a bit more. I won't get into that right here, but I will point out down at the bottom, it mentions this is not a complete game. Ownership of the Last 100 Yards Volumes 1 and 2 are required to play all included missions. So I am kind of curious, because that would indicate that this is an expansion, not a game, but this says this is the 4th game in the series. So I'm thinking maybe there are some scenarios in here which require counters from those other volumes. That would be my guess. All right, so let's open this up. So we've got 10-sided dice because the Last 100 Yards does utilize 10-sided dice. So we've got 4 of those. We've got baggies for all of our counters and tokens. We've got our rule book. And then we've got our playbook, which should have some additional rules, probably designer notes. So we do have our rules here. So this is looking more like a complete game than just an expansion. So I have reviewed the Last 100 Yards in the past, so you can definitely go and check out those videos. I like it. In my opinion, I feel that the series gives you a bit of the same feel as, say, Squad Leader, without getting into just the minutia that Advanced Squad Leader tends to dive into wholeheartedly. So the game does move along at a pretty good pace. So some information about the terrain, line of sight, our sequence of play. So we've got our activation phase, followed by activation, reaction, actions, maneuver actions. Getting into our combat here. So we've got our fire actions. So we've got mortar fire. Actually, quite a bit of information about mortar fire. Anti-tank fire. We've got our recovery actions. Fire resolution. for our armored combat, assault resolution for hand-to-hand combat or close combat. So characteristics of units and various different nations, airborne landing, random events, mission setup. So this is a complexity level 6 game, as indicated by GMT Games. I always point out, I find GMT tends to downplay the complexity on most of their games when they rate them on that scale of 1 to 9. It's probably a little more complex than, say, a 6 out of 9, maybe about a 7 out of 9. And if I remember correctly, I think I mentioned that too when I did my original review for Volume 1. So we've got our vehicle matrix, unit capability table, and then we've got our game credits. All right. So that is our rule book, clocking in at about 38 pages of rules. Next, we're going to get into our playbook, which I would take a guess probably has our scenarios and such. We're going to get into rules, examples. So definitely dig that. That is something that GMT playbooks are well known for, are the extensive examples of play. So here we're getting a breakdown of most of the major rule mechanics and examples of them. So enfilade, fire resolution, assaults, assaults by infantry and armored fighting vehicles, mortars, and then we start getting into examples of play with infantry and mortars. So going through the game turns here. So as you can see, very in depth, very, very cool. I say it all the time that as far as GMT games, when I get them and I'm trying to learn them, I always read the playbook first before I dive into the rule book, if there is a playbook. But a great majority of GMT games do have a playbook. So we get our extensive designer notes. So maybe our scenarios are on cards. It's been quite a while since I've taken a peek at the last 100 yards. So that is very, very possible because I just don't happen to recall the particulars about the scenarios. So we've got our casualty track, our time track, sequence of play, random events, fate. It's all right here on this. That's single-sided, of course. So let's start pulling this stuff on out. So we have our player aids. So we've got our small arms fire, anti-tank fire, small arms and mortar fire resolution, our terrain effects, a blind hex table. So difference in levels between the highest hex and the blocking terrain hex, stacking rules, maneuver points, disruption, assault resolution, vehicle destruction. So we got 2 copies of this. And yes, the scenarios are on cards. For some reason, I was thinking that they were in the playbook, but they are not. So as you can see, we're going to have in the 40s and 50s because this is the 4th release in the last 100 yards series. So we have mission 43, Green Devil's Last Stand. In fact, we will actually zoom in a little bit so that we can get a closer look. So this looks like this is probably our introductory scenario to the Russian front. So there's mission 44, mission 45, Tigers on the Prowl. Achtung Ruskis is mission 46. And we got 47 and 48. 48 is the rail station. Of course, it's giving us the map layouts as well as our special rules. So we have a partisan sweep and a recon in force. So as you can see, we've got quite a few scenarios in the Russian front. We've got the last bridge, the cookie crumbles is mission 53, clash on the road to Seno, mission 54. That's kind of cool. I think that's an industrial area. We'll get a closer look because we'll take a look at the various different map portions here. So there's 57, and then we get a DYO mission form East Front. Then we have 58, 5th Guards breakout. So as you can see, that's going to utilize 8 map panels. So this looks like this is the largest of the scenarios here. So here we've got that. So missions 40, was it 43, I think? 43 through 58. So nice selection there. Let's put that over here. Now we'll take a peek at some of the counter sheets, or we'll actually look at all of the counter sheets. So here we've got the Russians, front and back. And then we've got our armor and other vehicles. So we also start getting some German units. So once again, front and back. And as you can see on these counters, there's quite a few various different indicators on here, informational symbols that are on here, various different numbers. So this is not just a war game where your counters have attack value, defense value, and movement. Now there's quite a lot more going on than that. So we also have this half sheet with some more counters there. We've got numeric counters for die roll modifiers. So we've got that. And then we've got some informational counters here. And you may have noticed the only German units that we have here are right there. So that is why this is not a complete game, because you don't have the counters for the Axis outside of the ones that you just saw, which are some new additions. It looks like some new additions to the vehicles. Okay, so now we've got the various different map boards, and this is on cardstock. So these are not paper. These are on cardstock, so a little thicker than just standard paper maps. And they are treated a little bit, so you notice there is a bit of glare coming up on these. So we've got quite a few. Just gonna take a peek at these real quick. I do like the cartography on these. And it's kind of funny. One of the reasons why the last 100 yards kind of reminds me a little bit of Squad Leader is the way the hexes are laid out with the dot in the middle. Although, if I remember correctly, isn't Squad Leader, they have white? I thought they had white in all of the center hexes. I thought they had white in the center of all the hexes. I might be wrong. So this was not an industrial area, but it is a city. or a large town. All right. Got another one here. Got a river running through. A couple of bridges. That looks like that might be kind of a swampy area. Another map. So you are getting quite a bit in this fourth volume of the last 100 yards. So there we go. This is the last one that we've got. Okay. So that about 10 of these. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. Putting everything back here. 4, 5, 6, 7. Wow. Felt like more. That's kind of weird. Right. So we've got 7 of the cardstock maps. We have 4.5 punch boards of counters. We have a variety of scenarios, a couple of player aids. We've got our time and casualty track with some additional information, our playbook, as well as our series rules version 3.0. And that is what we find when we take everything outside the box from The Last 100 Yards, Volume 4, The Russian Front from GMT Games. All right, so that is a first look into the 4th volume of the Last 100 Yard series. I will have a review, hopefully, of The Russian Front in the very near future. Once again, this is available now. It is for 1 or 2 players. Keep in mind, it is not a complete game. We just saw why. It's because we don't really have many counters for the Germans, so we do need volumes 1 and 2 of The Last 100 Yards and able to utilize these scenarios in volume 4. So each of the scenarios do play out in about 2 hours or more, and this carries an MSRP of $65. As with anything from GMT Games, I point this out all the time, they do not have huge print runs. So if you are interested in picking up The Last 100 Yards, The Russian Front, definitely recommend do it now, because otherwise you'll be sitting around waiting for another P500, get another print run. Sometimes that can take a couple of years or more to do so. So if you are interested in adding this to your volumes of The Last 100 Yards, do not wait. All right, that is it for this time out. If you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already, and if you do subscribe, ring that bell. It'll not only let you know when I share videos such as this first look, it'll also inform you when my live show, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Thank you very much for joining me today. Have a happy new year. That is right around the corner. Of course, once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and until I see you next time, here's hoping all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.